based in the Netherlands, and maybe good morning to some of you in other parts of the world. My name is Els Boonacker. I'm fellow at Filion Leadership and Governance and also part of the growing Hardcore tribe. And yesterday I had the privilege of speaking about an investigation I did for my Executive Master in Change at INSEAD about bringing the heart back into law firms. And of course, this virtual summit is about negotiating the new normal for the future of law. And the talk I had yesterday was followed by a fireside chat where we also spoke about how can we, as part of the new normal in law, bring the heart back into business. And I spoke to my colleague Agavni, and we will carry on from that point where we started yesterday, and also add some new things to the mix today that are all about the heart, and the heart in law firms, but the heart in law in general, and maybe even the heart in all organizations in the world.
True.
So I'd like to give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. So today is about work hard, play hard. So that's all coming from this heart space and not the other heart part. We're in Heartcore-Lab right now, and I'm going to introduce to you Bruce, also part of the Hardcore tribe. So Bruce is so unbelievable hardcore because he has so much experience in matters of the heart. As a former CEO of Heartmath Institute, he knows what he's talking about. If we talk, for instance, about Heart Coherence, something that I also did yesterday during one of the transition launches. And also Bruce has a lot of experience in relation to transformational change in the corporate field. And that's also what Hardcore is about. And so it's really amazing to have Bruce on board, that he has like 30 years experience. So to do this session together with Bruce is really a present for you, our audience. And so a little bit about how we have met. With Hardcore, I started a podcast like a few months ago, and someone said you really need to have Bruce on board if you want to talk about the heart. So we connected and we immediately felt a strong connection, and I really sensed like, wow, this guy has so much presence and wisdom. I really want to stay connected. So when the Future Law Institute started to evolve, and we started to connect with Margaret and Anya about negotiating the new normal, like we immediately felt, okay, we're going to host a session or a Playshop. We need to invite Bruce. So very welcome, Bruce. Really happy that you're joining us. Please give a beautiful introduction also about yourself, because you have such an amazing background. And just to tell our audience, the first like 30-40 minutes of the session, Bruce will host, and yeah, just enjoy the ride.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I have your blessing. Let's go. Thank you so much, Raf. It is such a delight to be with both of you. You know, when you and I connected, as you said, thanks to M-braining and a mutual connection that you had studied that, and I knew the gentleman who founded that. Likewise, felt a tremendous resonance, and I will never forget that podcast interview, because as you may remember, I had to go to my car. I could not get Wi-Fi in my apartment. It was in the middle of lockdown in New York City. I lived just outside New York City, and the only place I could kind of do it with quiet and focus was in my car. So I kept kind of changing the view, so you'd have a changing view of my car. But it was a lovely connection and a deep conversation. That's really what I appreciated, especially. So when this opportunity came up, I thought, this is fascinating. I would love to be part of a conversation like this. And I do want to mention also that I have a great love for the Netherlands. I know that this is where the conference originates, and many people may not be from Netherlands who are on this in this summit. But back in the late 90s, starting in the late 90s, and then all through the 2000s, I made many trips to the Netherlands, because this Heartmath work that you referenced moments ago really caught on in the Netherlands around that time. And we started with Unilever and Shell. We were doing very large programs through the head office in both those corporations. And it spread to the Dutch National Police Force, who began to incorporate Heartmath skill training, coherence training into how all Dutch police are trained. So it's now built in. It has been for maybe 10 years now. And I made many visits there to work with the team of Heartmath Benelux, as it's called. Robert Erdbrink, who is a longtime colleague of mine, who has been heading up that operation for now 20 years, I think. So I've made many trips, many stops through Schiphol, and love the country, love the people, and it's a delight to be back, even though I'm in Connecticut, in the U.S. So yeah, this topic of work heart, play heart, very clever play on words. I love the theme. And as Raf said, I've had this long association with this marvelous organization called Heartmath Institute. It's about to celebrate its 30th anniversary next year in 2021. So 30 years, and a brief about what it does and what it means and why that aspect of my life is very relevant to today. Heartmath started as a nonprofit research organization just outside Silicon Valley in California in 1991. And the intention was to create a set of techniques and tools that would be able to help anyone in any field of career, aspect of life, meaning no matter what the job is, no matter what the phase of your life is, no matter what you're dealing with. Obviously, right now, we have this global issue called, well, we have several global issues, don't we? COVID is the big one on our minds. And then there's, oh yeah, the global recession. And then, oh yeah, climate change. Yeah, so these massive global issues. And so HeartMath came along to say, there are things we can learn about how to operate our own system as humans, but also collectively as organizations or families or communities that can increase our fulfillment, our productivity, our well-being, not just in metaphorical ways, but in measurable ways. And so we were a research organization, and published many articles showing that there was a way that the brain and heart together can communicate in order to facilitate clearer thinking, more balanced decisions, better communication, overall health and well-being. So a whole range of things. And for me, just a little bit of background of what got me even into this, the interest in this. My career actually started as an actor, singer, dancer in musical theater in New York. And it was a fantastic time. And this was a long time ago, many moons ago. And I loved it. I loved the theater. I loved being on stage. I was a good singer, dancer. I could do all of that. And it was super fun to get the applause of the audience, get the laughter, get the accolades, have people wait outside the stage door wanting your autograph. You know, all that was happening. I'm like, this is really happening. No, there's no way. So it was fun. But there was a deeper part of me a few years into this where I began to realize that my care about humanity and the world, my interest growing up in the 50s and 60s in the US, an incredibly dynamic time of social unrest, anger against an unjust war, anger about the way people of color were being treated in our country when the voting wasn't even legal for Blacks to vote in most places until the mid 60s. So a period of tremendous unrest and the cultural revolution of hippies and love and peace and the Beatles, you know, all that was so present. And I found myself very drawn to certain aspects of that, to the desire to help the world find peace, feeling that love was a primary principle that needed to be at the center of our lives, not just because it was idealistic, because it's better. It just works. And yet it's so incredibly challenging. So that had been my background. And then I kind of got whisked into this career in theater in New York and kind of like, how did I get here? This isn't at all how I thought my life was going to unfold. And after about 5 years, realized, well, it's time to move kind of back to where I thought I was going. And in the exploration of my own development, personally, spiritually, collectively, and moved to California and completely closed down that chapter of my life as an actor and singer and dancer, and found the transition shockingly easy. Like the light had turned off on that, and now new lights were turning on in a new phase. And wow, why did I do that actor thing? And later I discovered, because I'm on stage all the time speaking and presenting and sharing things of meaning to me, which hopefully will inspire and or educate others. And so the fact that I am comfortable in front of audiences, even on Zoom, is like really handy. So I'm very grateful that I had that phase of my life. But in leaving that career, as I say, I felt that for me, there was something beyond just being able to entertain people that I wanted to do with my life. I hoped to inspire them in some way. I hoped to educate them in some way. But I was 24 freaking years old. I was not exactly some wise, elder yet. And now I'm marginally wise and more of an elder. So I realized there was a lot of growth I just wanted for myself. And so, of course, California is famously the kind of place you might find things like that, right? And I did, and began to learn many things, and eventually was drawn into being asked to be part of the initial core group of Heartmath. And so, through the years of helping develop Heartmath as an organization, and as Raf has mentioned, I was very involved in the corporate development, which is why I came to the Netherlands, and before that the UK, and all over the world, with helping huge organizations in many cases bring in methods and techniques that were scientifically based, but were far more around the areas of personal development, personal growth than a lot of companies would normally have been comfortable with. But because we had all this science, we had all this evidence from published in major medical journals that there are certain things you can do to align your brain, align your heart, align your emotions that just makes you more effective. If you're a superstar athlete, you're more effective. If you're a lawyer, if you're a parent, if you're a student trying to study for their exams, and we began to accumulate evidence around all those areas. Athletes doing better, students scoring better on tests because they were learning how to manage their heart and their brain together. So that was the life that I lived very fully. And then one day in late 2009, I had a medical diagnosis that changed everything. And I had cancer, and it was a tumor. It was a large tumor. Luckily, it was in a part of the body where they could get at it and get the whole thing out. And I began to go into some treatments to make sure I would not get it back. And fast forward to today, I'm coming up on 11 years cancer-free. So it's had a happy ending, but it took a while to get to the happy ending. I had complications in the treatments, and I started getting staph infections. The staph got into my blood, which is a life-threatening condition. So now I was hospitalized for a life-threatening outcome of a treatment to make sure the other life-threatening situation wouldn't get worse. So the irony and the scariness of this was not lost on me, of course, and got through all of that. And so I'm now more than 10 years staph infection free. But meanwhile, my hips had been challenged from being a dancer, running on roads for thousands of miles for dozens of years. And my hips started to get worse and worse and worse through all of this. And I finally recognized soberly that double hip replacement was the only alternative. I had tried everything else. I had tried every alternative modality, therapeutic method, and they just kept getting worse. So I had double hip replacement. And right as this was going on, my mother passed away, and my marriage was ending. Other than that, there's a 2-year period of a walk through the park. So I share all that because I've got some scars, and had some dark nights of the soul where I reflected deeply on where my life needed to go and what I needed to find a deeper fulfillment. As rich a life as I had in being CEO of Heartmath at that point, helping share it with people all over the world, still to this day. I'm still teaching Heartmath at Stanford University, which I've been doing now for 24 years. 24 years. That's another number that's like, wow. But I've got a 33-year-old daughter, which is totally impossible. There must be a mistake. There's no freaking way I could have a daughter that old, but I do. So anyway, that period of my life of kind of getting through all the health stuff awakened another deeper part of my heart, for lack of a better term, that I needed to be fully myself. I had become a very good manager. I was managing a lot of meetings in our company, in Heartmath. I was traveling a lot. I was teaching a lot and consulting a lot, but there was still something missing. I was not fully integrated, to use that word. I was not fully expressing different aspects of myself. And I started singing again, and a whole phase of my life came back. which after several years of beginning to do keynote performances instead of keynote speeches, where I was bringing music in and getting the audience singing and doing fun things like that. After several years of that, then the election happened in 2016 in the US. You might have heard that we had an election in 2016 and things kind of got different. And I began to feel like I was very much in living in California near San Francisco, very much in an area of privilege, in a bubble, not very connected to how drastic a change this was going to mean to our country, let alone the world, and decided I would move back to the New York area. So I moved back about 3 years ago, and then of course found myself in Manhattan when the lockdown happened, and we were all told, go home, stay home, and the shock of what was happening in the city around me that I love so dearly. But it all all of that together kind of even deepened my recognition that we as people, now here we are as a planet, as a human race, all facing the same issues at the same time, multiple. If COVID has done one thing, it showed us we are interconnected. Just try to keep that stuck in your country. Good luck with that. It's a global issue. There's just no way around it. We are connected as a species. We are connected. If we ever wanted to doubt that, have a look around. So it's made me more inspired probably than ever that, and especially because of all this work that I continue to do with Stanford and many other places where people, because of all the restriction that's been happening for the last 7 or 8 months of our lives feeling so small compared to what they were like. I mean, I've not been able to perform live in a venue as I was doing regularly in New York City for 7 months. Just the things that we took for granted that we still aren't in many cases able to do. And so many people would come to me and say, I feel like I'm missing this part of me that I used to have more creative energy. I used to have things that I enjoyed more in life, but now, when everything is, we have to stay mostly at home or, whatever the restriction was. So it kind of inspired me to want to kind of deepen that work around helping people awaken their creative spirit. And so I want to share some things with you really about that, because it's been a fascinating journey on a personal level to see that as I began to kind of embrace parts of myself that I'd had, like singing and dancing, and do them again. For me, it brought a creative energy into my business work that was profound and obvious. Like I was having fun in my life again. And so even though I wasn't getting paid for that for the most part, that was just fun that I did. Sometimes I got paid to sing. It brought a fun energy to my role as a consultant or a communications person, or I'm now, as of 4 months ago, president of a graduate school here in Connecticut, all around the theme of holistic studies. I'm now an administrator. We have a small staff, 25 people. I'm an executive, again, running an organization that has very complex. But I have found that because the creative side of me got turned on, that it doesn't turn off even when I have to be very cognitive and very linear and very analytical. There's an energy I'm able to bring to being very strategic, very focused, very structured when that's needed. So when the idea of this summit was coming up, negotiating the new normal, and I thought, what a great thing. I would love to meet these people that have this vision, because to me, every facet of society now is being challenged to say, what do we need to be doing differently? Because clearly, so much is breaking down and clearly needs to. It's been unsustainable, so many aspects of society. So in my little way, my view is that every single human being, part of what makes human beings so remarkable and so challenging, is that we are born with the power to create life. We can create another life. Whether or not we do is not of interest to me, really. I mean, I'm a dad. I love being a dad. But my real point is that we have that energy to create. For many of us, I was very fortunate to be encouraged as a kid to, sure, you want to do music, go for it. You want to sing, sure, go for it. You want to be artistic, sure, go for it. I have 2 parents who had very straight day jobs, but were both extremely artistic and fully did that in their off time as more like hobbies. So I was encouraged. Later in life, I discovered that was really rare. A lot of kids were not encouraged. They were, in fact, it was the opposite. Whatever creative urge they may have had, no, 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 don't do that. Our family are accountants. We're doctors in this family. The Cryers are doctors, not artists. So many people were shut down, or they got to the workplace having been fully on, still doing creative things while studying law, and then they get in a workplace and that all of that's discouraged. And I don't just mean the creative, like you're supposed to literally do watercolors while you're preparing a brief. No, I don't mean it in that way. But I mean the energy to contribute, the energy to collaborate, to create collectively together. That energy can play out as an artistic outcome, like the creation of a song, a dance, a poem, a movie, a photo essay, whatever, or it can play out as the creation of a marvelous outcome because the relationships you're building, that you're creating, are richer and more wholesome and more collaborative. So in my humble opinion, creative energy we all have. It's not like just the artists have the franchise on it. I think it's a mistake when we call artists the creatives. We are all equally creative in my view. Some of us have turned it on or have consciously said, I've got to pull this out of me again because life doesn't feel right. So for those of you who are lawyers, which I assume many of you listening to this are, I am not suggesting necessarily that you start doodling in the courtroom or during negotiations and start doing your pretty flowers. If you want to do that, that's your choice. But what I'm saying is that there's an energy that we all have in us, all of us, that once that's turned on more in our life, that makes us wholer people, fuller people. So whatever our job is, if we are a negotiator, we become more sensitive to the issues that we're negotiating. We become better listeners because we're listening more to those parts of ourselves, not just the cognitive sides of ourselves. So I see comments come out. I can't fully read it. Feel free, ladies, to jump in and tell me if there's something I should respond to. So what I'd like to do now is kind of take us through a little exercise, and I'm going to share my screen. And you're going to do two things here that might be a little bit surprising. So why not just go ahead and get into that? So I'm going to share my screen now, and I am turning on the computer sound to make sure that you can all hear this. I assume most of you are at home now as you're listening to this, and as opposed to and I assume you can see the Roth 5 catalysts. You can see that?
Yes.
Great. So I'm not going to spend time on this right now. We're going to really go into an exercise, a two-part exercise. This is a play shop, so we get to play around a little bit, which I love the name Playshop. So when I, through Stanford or other areas, help people kind of get in touch with this creative energy that I'm talking about that I believe is fundamental to all of us, there's 5 elements that I go through, and based upon what I did. This is not some academic model saying I've surveyed all the literature on creativity. No, this is what I personally did. I found that all of these areas, if I would do any of these things, it triggered something that released more creative energy to solve a problem, to fix a relationship issue that I was struggling with, whatever it was. So what we're going to do in this little next about 15 minutes is I'm going to take you through a two-part exercise around the first 2 catalysts. Mindfulness. I don't know if there have been other talks about mindfulness today, but probably, and I'm sure most of you are familiar and perhaps even have some kind of a practice. So I'm going to guide you through a little mindfulness exercise of several minutes. There'll be a soundtrack playing, and it'll just be an opportunity to kind of unplug from whatever else has been going on for a few minutes and just kind of focus more internally, take stock, if you will, of what's happening in your body, in your thoughts. It's nice to be doing a program like this on a Saturday because there are usually fewer pulls to us through our phone, through our computer, of like, you have to get back to me by 10:30 today, that kind of thing. So hopefully you're in a little more relaxed mode to explore this and have some fun with it. So the first half of the exercise will be a mindfulness exercise, which I will lead you through. And then there'll be a period just of some silence for 15, 20 seconds. So the soundtrack is gone and I'll be just saying one or two things. And then we'll move into the second catalyst called movement. And what this means is that I'm going to literally lead you through some movement. It's not like disco dancing, and it's not like dancing. And it'll be you yourself doing it as you choose. And it's fine to have your camera turned off. This is not about performing. It's not about watching other people. And that's part of the beauty actually doing this on Zoom is you can be private, right? You don't have to feel self-conscious as you're doing this. But the point of this is this movement exercises that I have learned many times in my life, particularly after coming back from double hip replacement. And the years prior to that, when my own body's ability to move without pain was severely compromised. I had to lift my left leg into the car every day to drive. I had to lift it in because I had no strength in it anymore. The pain was so extreme. I had to lift my leg and I had to lift it out of the car. That's how bad it was before I had my surgery. Now, if you didn't know that and you saw me dancing, you'd be thinking there's no way that guy went through that. So my point is that as I was able to move again, I began to feel like, wow, movement is so important. And most of us, part of the challenge of the lockdown too, is that we're even more stationary than ever, even more sedentary than ever. We don't, so many of us are not in offices where we get up and talk to somebody over there and then go to the meeting down the hall and then go around. We're in our bedroom and then it's the living room and then it's the bathroom and the kitchen. That's about it for many of us still. So we're not moving. And stagnant, stuck energy, this is what I draw of the shape of most of us most of the time. We're in this shape, sitting. That's not flow. That's a shape of stagnation. And so simply the fact that we're stuck in a position for hours at a time on Zoom or on our computer, whatever we're doing, makes it even harder to access a creative idea or get into more of a flow state. So in this movement exercise, it's the opportunity to just move and to explore. The analogy will be that we all have this creative energy inside us. So now it's awakening and there'll be different music. And so the music's kind of cool and kind of fun and it'll encourage the awakening of this energy. So that's what we're going to do. So suspend all disbelief and go with this and have fun. And I encourage you, number one, to close your eyes. And we're going to start out with this mindfulness activity. And so to begin, I invite you to sit up straight. If you're on a sofa because it's the weekend in your home or whatever, feel free to have your legs crossed. But if you're in a normal chair, have your feet on the floor, hands relaxed in your lap. And I'm going to guide you through this next few minutes to get out of more of the mental frame that most of us need to be in. Our jobs, and especially I know this is true of lawyers, but I find in my job as a president of a university, I have to be very mental a lot of the time. I have to be thinking about process and analysis and data, and that I have to stay there. But I don't want to only be there. I know that is a limiting way of seeing life. I have to expand beyond just that. So this mindfulness exercise will give us an opportunity to go beyond just our usual way of thinking and perceiving. So we're going to start by deepening our breath. And to do that, I invite you to focus your attention in the area of your heart. And draw the air in as though it could come in through your heart. And take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, imagine the air going out through the heart, taking with it any tiredness, any pain, any anxiety. And then breathe in again, imagine it can come in through your heart. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, you're letting go of anything that you don't want in there anymore. Any worries, any looping thoughts, just let it go. And now breathe in again, deep in through your heart. Breathe in new life energy. And as you exhale, just let go of anything tired, anything old, anything achy, any pain, just let it go. And now breathe in again through the heart and hold it in your heart and be grateful you have breath that can help you relax. And then as you exhale, just let go of anything old or tired or weary in you. And now just breathe deeper than normal, imagining still that you're breathing in and out through your heart. And I invite you to become mindful of your entire body, starting with the top of your head. Continuing to breathe deeply, seeing your breath as a tool, as an ally in your own relaxation, in your own creation of more internal coherence or alignment. So first we focus into the head, breathe into the head, and the scalp, the face, the jaw, the back of your head, and breathing into that area. And then as you exhale, just letting go of anything tired or painful in your head. And now breathe into the neck and your shoulders and your upper back and your upper chest. You're breathing into that area. And then as you exhale, you're letting go of any tension, just relaxing, releasing from that part of your body. And now breathing into the heart and the belly and the rib cage in the middle of your back. And then as you exhale, just releasing any tension, just letting it go, just like athletes release tension that they've drawn from training hard. Just let go of the tension. And now breathing into the hips and the pelvis and the upper thighs. And as you breathe into that area, just breathe out now and let go and relax and release any pain, any tiredness. And now you breathe into your knees and your lower legs and your calves and your shins. And as you exhale, relax and release any tension in that part of your body. And finally, your feet. Your feet carry so much. You focus in on the tops of your feet and your toes, and the balls of your feet and your arches, and your heels. Thank your feet, and as you exhale, just let go of anything your feet are carrying. Let go, just let go. And now just gently breathe in, and as you breathe in new energy from nature, from life around you, breathe it in and allow it to circulate all through your body, bringing new energy to all the cells in your body. And then as you exhale out through the heart again, just imagine anything else stuck in your body. It's just releasing now. It's just letting go so you can be free. And just breathe in feelings of gratitude now. And think about people in your life, people who you work with that you value and admire, your family that you love, that are often the motivation to work so hard. Feel gratitude for nature, for places that you go because they give you so much rejuvenation, vitality. Grateful for a sunrise, if that inspires you. Grateful for the role of music in your life, if that inspires you. Grateful for certain things you get to do that feel so you. When you do that, it just feels so good. Riding a bike, gardening, whatever it is. So allow your system to be filled with gratitude for the things in your life now that you love. And just breathe in, continuing this carry this feeling of gratitude in the silence. And now we're going to transition into the next phase, which is the awakening of that creative energy. Imagine it really is at the center of every cell in our body. If we have the power to create life, that energy is in us. It's alive in us. It may be sleepy. It may need some awakening. So let's awaken it. So as the music comes into your awareness, feel that rhythm, hear the different sounds. Imagine this creative energy is coming alive in you right now. Imagine that your hands are feeling it first. And your hands, it's like you're feeling your hands in a whole new way, like the creative energy was there first. Kind of squeeze them and open them, stretch them up. And then feel energy, this creative energy flowing into your arms. And your arms are moving now. And let the rhythm of the music make you move a little bit now. And your arms are feeling it. It's into your shoulders too. And you may hear a voice here and there. And feel the rhythm. Let the arms get into it. And lift the arms up over your head from time to time. And move them around. Keep the energy of the creation moving through you now. The music is bringing it alive. Now feel your rib cages into it. Your torso moving side to side. Side to side. And maybe your legs are feeling it and your feet are feeling it. Just allow your body to go with it. No one's watching. You can look silly and nobody cares. You can feel stupid and nobody cares. Just enjoy. Now, the only problem with the picture is we're all still sitting. So go ahead and stand up. And allow yourself to feel the energy in your body even stronger. This isn't a meditation now. This is movement now. This is getting into your body now. Allowing the creative energy to come alive in your body. Allow the movements to be small for a little while. The music's quieter, so just smaller, more subtle movements. The energy's still in your body, but you're exploring this quieter energy inside yourself. And allow your hands to come together as though it was holding a ball of energy. You're kind of carrying this ball of energy. Your body's still moving. You're not still. Feeling the rhythm of the music. And let the ball go and just expand the energy in through your body. And now let's go. Now imagine your movements are flowing through water. So there's a grace to how you're moving now, a fluidity to how you're moving now. Moving this energy slowly through water. start to lift it up. Let your arms go higher. Just enjoy. Remember to breathe. Take a deep breath into your heart. Let the air help you come alive even more right now. Raise your arms. So you're facing the sun right now. Now let the movement start to get a little subtler and smaller, slowing down, still feeling very alive. Okay, so wherever you are right now, if you're standing, just stand still for a moment. If you're sitting, just be still. Breathe. Breathe in through the heart again. Go ahead and sit down in front of your computer or in front of your device and go to the chat and put in a word or two or three at the most of how you feel right now. Go ahead into the chat. Calm. Relaxed and alive, blessed, inspired. Tingly and connected. Favorite comment so far. Open and connected. Excellent. Happy. Excellent. Great. So, and maybe you didn't feel uplifted. Sometimes the process of moving awakens something that needs to be dealt with that isn't necessarily happy. And part of the value of getting up and moving is that it can sometimes, buzzing, another great comment, is that it can sometimes help you realize that there's something I'm not dealing with in business, in a relationship issue, whatever it may be. And suddenly you realize, I got to take care of this. So movement is not just because I'm a dancer and I want to enjoy myself during these play shops. Yes, I am a dancer, and yes, I want to enjoy myself. but it is so much more than that. It is so much about energy is alive in us, and we have to be alive to do any kind of cognitive job. But if we're using the fullness of our energy capacity, it's just different than if we're operating only on those frequencies that the brain is really good at, the high beta brainwave frequencies. If we're only operating on those all the time, life gets kind of brittle, kind of stiff. I'll share one more comment, and then I think we're going to jump in and reflect more about this. And Raf, feel free to jump in, but the one comment I want to make, and part of what has motivated me to keep moving after everything that I went through, and the joy of even being able to move so much after I never dreamed I would dance again, even though I was getting my hips replaced. My goal was to be able to walk and hike without pain. I thought, if I can do that, I'm golden. The fact that I was able to dance, I had to work out. I had to strengthen muscles again that I hadn't used in years. I had to stretch in ways I hadn't stretched in years. So it didn't just come. I had to work to get it. But once I was over the hump, I was like, my God, I can move again. And the release of joy that happened from that. And I have found in doing this same process all over the world with people from every conceivable phase of life and ethnicity and you name it, that there's a freedom that comes in just move. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter that you're not a dancer. I think all humans, we were born to move. We were born to, back in the day, that's what we did. And we all got around the fire and we danced and danced and danced to celebrate the season, the hunt, whatever it was. We're born to move in our lifestyle today. Hopefully we exercise or ride our bikes or do that kind of thing, but many of us don't, especially in this time. It's so hard, it's so much harder. So, but we've got this, we could take 5 minutes and do that in the middle of our day because we're working from home and nobody's gonna see us. So anyway, I will pause and encourage Raf, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bruce, for this beautiful movement, music, and breathing experience, also through the heart. You really showed importance, and also in relation to everything that you already said about your background, how important heart coherence is, and that we can access that through different methods, right? And breath work.
Exactly.
Really a strong force, and we have it. It's for free to access that. So it was really good, and we had our cameras on, so it felt a little bit weird, but still, like, we went for it. And I hope we can example on how to do that. Although I felt like standing up, and then I thought, well, then the camera is not on our face. So next time we would do it dancing in front of the camera. But I believe Els has some questions for you, but just wanted to thank you for this session and that we could join that.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I come from a law background. I worked at a large law firm in the Netherlands, and I really enjoyed this. But even today, in this setting, on a Saturday, in this comfortable place, I notice a hesitation in myself to fully engage with this. And I'm not sure if it comes from my professional background or my personal background, but it feels like I'm doing it with the brakes on. And I mean, today we're a gathering of people who are passionate about the future of law. So I think that people who are watching this are at the forefront of change in law, whatever change that may be, because we're speaking about many different topics at the summit. But I think it's always also a change in yourself. So the people here maybe are even more comfortable than I am already doing this kind of stuff, but maybe they know people who they work with that are a little less comfortable with movement or with meditation, or with even the language that we use that we're talking about today, bringing the heart back into work. From my experience in a law firm, lawyers are very attuned to language, and they're also they can be very critical about language. So both those things, both using movement, meditation, breathing, but also speaking about heart and love in the workplace, I don't think it's the natural way to do things for lawyers.
That's an understatement.
How would you help us, the people here today, and people on the chat, please jump in if you agree or if you see this differently, but how would you how would you put this forward in this field, in this sector?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think you're absolutely right. This group today, this summit, is attracting people who are either on the very leading edge or just behind it, wanting to be, and therefore they're automatically open to exploring what could we be able, what could we create here. And I think part of what I wanted to do today in the opening is to stretch people, and knowing that was going to be could be uncomfortable for some. I've been through being stretched in uncomfortable ways so many times in my life. And part of what I began to see was, the expression, get outside of your comfort zone, right? That's a very common expression around anything kind of like this. You got to get out of your comfort zone, guys. Try it, right? I think of it differently. I think of it that we have to expand our comfort zone, as opposed to getting out of it, like for a summit like this, and then going back to it after the summit's over. Why don't we expand? And in order to expand, whether that's a muscle, I mean, if you're going to train, you go through a lot of discomfort. If you want to be a successful runner or a successful swimmer or successful anything, there is discomfort. There are those times when, oh man, I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel easy. That doesn't feel fun anymore. It's getting really hard and really tiring. So anything we get better at, there is some discomfort, which are the muscles starting to grow, new muscles that are starting to grow, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Because anybody who's an athlete, I mean, I was a dancer, I was a singer, I didn't get to be on Broadway without practicing. I had many hours of listening to myself and thinking, this sounds terrible. And that was painful. Or just times when I was physically so tired, or dancing and then getting injured. And so I was going through pain in order to get to the next level. So there's often some discomfort involved to get to the next level. In this case, the discomfort is relatively mild. It's words that we're not totally comfortable with in the context of the office. At home, we're okay with it. Like we can say love more easily to a spouse or our kids especially, but at the office, we shut that off. That's programming. That's old software in the brain that we were trained by our parents or by the teachers, whoever. And it takes a little while to outgrow that. So two things I'm saying. One is that in the context of this session, yeah, I'm going for it. I'm purposely being the catalyst to help people's comfort zone expand a little, knowing that the conference will be over and hopefully they'll come back and it'll at least be a bigger comfort zone than it was before. Even if it didn't feel totally comfortable the whole time, which I totally respect that. I know I'm stretching people. I know even me keeping my camera on and kind of being all over the place as I am because I love to dance so much. That could be weird for people too. Like, wow, he's like really into this. Yeah, I am. So I think, to me, it's like the time that we're in now is creating a more heightened sense of where our comfort and where our discomfort is. The time we're in, COVID, the restriction, the shutdown, the sense of I can't do this is making it even more obvious where my comfort and where my discomfort is. So I think it's actually also a fantastic opportunity to learn to get through these areas of discomfort and saying, what's the worst that can happen if I just let go a little bit more? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. And what I see happening, so thank you for your answer. And I see a beautiful question that relates also to our conversation before from Marion.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to explain your question.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, how about looking at where the word heart comes from? The original word, it comes from the word cœur, which means courage as well.
Yeah.
And the heart is made of a muscle that needs to be
trained.
Yes, you just need to use your heart muscle.
Exactly. Well, thank you for that, and it's a beautiful perspective. And I know I didn't fully address the language issue, so I'm glad she's brought this up now because there's a lot more I think we can say about this. Language, cœur, French for heart, courage, heart core. When we've studied through Heartmath multiple civilizations and religious systems, their view of the heart, and there's shocking commonality that the heart for millennia, if not tens of thousands of years, has been revered as a source of courage and also of wisdom and also of intuition and insight. Many things that were always attributed to the heart for thousands of years. You see it in every, I'm reading a book now called The Life and Teaching of Masters of the Far East, all about that the fundamental principle of everything is love. That God is nothing if not love. The Bible has over 1,400 references to the word heart. The Quran has hundreds of references to heart. Every religion, every spiritual system, every civilization, Egyptians, in the mythology, they would weigh, at the point of death, would weigh the weight of the heart and determine if it was too heavy, you had to come back and pay the price of what the evil deeds. If it was lighter than that, you got to go on to kind of the next level. So the heart has been revered. And at a certain point, about 150, 200 years ago, partly because of the Cartesian view, the Descartes, of things being mechanistic, and the scientific view that the heart was just a muscle, and Descartes basically said that the heart's a fantastic, incredible machine. Well, it's got a fantastic pump, but it is so much more than the heart, than a machine. And so, but in our Western mind, not so much in the East, but in the Western mind, we began to believe that the heart's just a pump, and it's not associated with courage and beauty and intuition and love and connection, that it's not any of those things. So Heartmath came along and said, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Humanity, at least a big chunk, associates the heart with weakness or being a pump, when in fact, it's the ultimate source of strength and courage and wisdom. But we have to get back into that because we weren't trained to believe that necessarily. So it can feel uncomfortable to start to go there. It can feel like, oh, the guys must have spent a lot of time in California. Meaning me.
Also, what I would love to add to that is that the work of Heartmath is also about, you can measure your heart rate variability. And then what happens if you go from the two like opposites, like frustration, that your heart rate will do this. And then if you do a breathing exercise into appreciation, then it's the coherent breathing, right? That is what is showing. So that's also, that proves also that also we can learn from our heart to practice this, to practice heart coherence, and then be better leaders or deal with challenges or obstacles way better in life.
Yeah.
So
Well,
like,
and let me go a little bit. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Continue, finish that.
running, like when you start running, it feels like shit. Start meditating, it's like, what the fuck is happening in my mind?
Yeah, exactly.
Breath work, meditation, it's like if you train that muscle, you will become more comfortable with it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think to go a little bit more into the science, I think is helpful here because there's massive stress in the society. Obviously, pick an issue. I just mentioned three, and then there's the personal fear about finances, the personal fear that hundreds of millions of parents have right now, that their kids are not getting the kind of education that they need because everything's had to shift. At least in the U.S., some kids are 1 day a week at school, and if that, and the rest of the time online when they feel like it. It's a really strange world. So there's a lot of fear going on. And part of what the Heartmath research is whenever we are in any kind of stress, it doesn't matter what it is, our body biochemically changes dramatically. It changes into a fight-flight mode. It changes into defensive, feeling threatened, and ready to hit at something because I'm being threatened now. And that's human physiology. And unfortunately, today, there are so many things that are causing anxiety in people that, if anything, we're at our worst. We're the most fearful in general. I mean, some of us are trying to find ways through that, obviously. But in general, it's easy to be kind of in a constant kind of reaction, defense kind of mode. And the more you are living in what we call stress physiology, where you're continually having these kind of reactions to people. A lovely example, a fun example that Elston and I were talking about earlier, is the very common thing. It could have happened to you today, where you simply look at your email inbox or your list of texts and you see a name. And as soon as you see that name, you feel the stress reaction. You don't even open the message. You just say, oh no, Physiologically, what has happened in that moment that you said and you felt, oh no, that feeling that you got of or whatever it was, is a biochemical response triggering 1,400 biochemicals in your body. Biochemicals you need to have the strength to kill the saber-toothed tiger if that's what's attacking you at that moment. Unfortunately, all it is the name of somebody in your email inbox. But in that moment, it feels like a threat. And so you're producing all that biochemistry. It's also biochemistry that makes you stupid. Because when you are really feeling threatened, higher brain function is not operating. It's not supposed to. You're in more of a fight, flight, I gotta survive right now. So higher brain function is out the window. You don't need long-term strategy in that moment of trying to kill the saber-toothed tiger. You need total power to deal with the problem, or total speed to get away from the problem. You're not being in higher cognitive function at all. So the challenge today is that there's so many things that are putting us back in that stress physiology. So everything feels like a threat. And I don't mean literally everything for everyone, but we're living at a time where there's more of that than I've ever experienced in my lifetime. And so unless we are doing something systematically to release those biochemical interactions that are happening in our body that are aging us and keeping us stuck in a more negative perspective, unless we're doing something to let that go throughout the day, it accumulates and it affects our sleep. So we wake up at 3 in the morning, still worried about that meeting that happened, or the meeting that's got to happen later today. And the physiology is keeping us stuck in a more negative perspective. And so, and we're also sensitive people. Many of us are very sensitive people. So we can feel the stress of others more than ever. We can feel kind of like, I'm feeling weird today. Maybe it's everybody else. Maybe it's the fact that everybody's, I mean, in the US, imagine what's going on in the US right now as we get closer and closer to the election. I mean, either way, no matter what happens, and when we're even going to find out the actual truth, half of the country is going to be really, really upset. I've never lived through anything like this. So there is a level of angst about that issue alone that is huge right now in our country. So it's a sea of that. So all I'm saying is, given all these things that can put us into the stress physiology and on edge a lot, it's even more important to say, well, what can I do then? Okay, so, and here's the thing about the word heart. And I think, Els, you saw a video I did one time for a corporate conference where I talked about the irony to me that in the US, at least, I can't speak for other countries, but in the US, often in sports, a team comes back from being down in the game and they come back and win at the end. And many times you'll hear the coach say, and this may be American football where the players are, 150 kilos and they're super tall and they're warriors. And the coach is saying, my guys play with so much heart. I love my guys. I just love these guys. And these guys are testosterone driven, macho men, warrior, gladiator type guys, having no problem saying, I love my guys. I go to battle with these guys. I love them. There's no problem with those guys saying love. And yet us lawyers, we can't talk about love. Us accountants, we can't talk about love. Us CEOs, we can't talk about love. Really.
But Bruce, let me challenge you again a little bit.
Go for it.
The perspective, because I'm a lawyer, so I like the challenge, of course.
Of course.
I understand the American football guys, right? They're using their bodies as their work in a way. I mean, of course, they have the tactics, so they're using their mind as well, but their body is a large part of their success. I mean, they're super talented athletes, and that's what it's giving them. But lawyers, the super talented lawyers, are really using their intellect, their thinking, their analytical skills, their reasoning and logical and rationality. So, I mean, it's also, I mean, if you look just at your body, like an American football player is from here down is his success, and maybe a lawyer from here up is the success, right? So how does it work? I mean, I would love to say in my old law firm, I love you to my colleagues, but I'm quite sure they would be kind of surprised.
Well, I think let's not get stuck on the word love. Let's not.
I'm going to in a minute.
I missed that. Somebody was speaking up. I was trying to say, let's not get hung up on the word love and heart like that's the main point. Because, I mean, I'm using that as an example because in American culture, men, I don't care whether they're lawyers or football players, it's not the norm to be saying I love anything. Except maybe your son. You might say that to your son. That's acceptable. So I'm trying to point out that there's an energy of just let go of the attitude, just let go of the concept that because I'm a certain thing, therefore I can't be something else. I'm encouraging us. I'm kind of poking and saying, let go. What's the worst that can happen? You know, in other aspects of your life, it's fine to say, I love my tulips, or I love my riding through nature. It's fine to say it there. Why not? But I think that's also from the language point is that it's not about saying love all the time, like that is the thing, but it's about, as somebody I think just put in the chat, about having attitudes that are more of compassion, more of taking care of oneself, and more acknowledging, as I had to do, and left a marriage and left a job I was incredibly identified with, the CEO job of Harvard. I stepped away from that job because I realized I wasn't honoring all of the parts of me. I was really good at the head stuff. I was a good administrator. I was a good manager. The company grew a lot while I was there. A lot of things were working, functioning a lot better. But there was a part of me that still was not fully satisfied. And I realized I will be better at whatever I do if I acknowledge and honor the other parts of myself. And part of that is just about being compassionate, not necessarily using the word love, but just being a better listener and saying, I'm going to put listening to my client as a top priority and a top value. And that's the inclusion of heart in business, not just the words. It's the desire to connect deeper and have compassion.
Yeah, I see a comment coming in from Teresa. I really love that. About Nelson Mandela also like taking moral courage to lead by example and to go forward. And so relating to courage, I just want to say something because it also relates to the words we're choosing. Like if it's weird to say I love you, but you can show compassion in the work field, no matter what work field you're in, right? Probably you do care for your people. I know you care for me, I care for you.
Exactly, yeah.
From an embraining perspective, although the word in French, le cœur, shows it relates to the heart, in embraining, it's a multiple brain integration technique that also integrates the knowledge of Heartmath, but that's about courage relates to the gut. So when I'm reading this quote or this sentence from Teresa, it took moral courage for leaders like Nelson Mandela to lead by example and to really take action. That's also, courage is really like a gutsy move, like you're forced, like you feel the compassion for your community, for society, and you want to change something. So I also believe in law, like what you explained yesterday. You started in law because you want to be into human rights, right? Yeah. You want to be of help. So that's really because your heart is in that. And then taking the action, that's what's like making you going forward. And from an embraining perspective, we say, like, we are so creative to find opportunities from our mind space, but to include and align with your heart, with the compassionate part and with courage to actually take that action is so important to go forward.
And maybe there we can also build a bridge to the work, because Bruce, you've been working already for 30 years with all these different corporations. You've spoken to Unilever and Shell, but also many US corporations. Because there's how you speak about your personal story, that you felt you were not using parts of yourself, and it was a reason to step away as the CEO of Heartmath. In the law field, I see a lot happening the same. People come to this realization and reflection about themselves that they can't be their full selves at work, whether they use the word heart or love or not, but that's, right. I see a lot of people leaving, especially big law firms, as a result. Mm-hmm. But then I mean, how could we inverse that and say, how can we go into those organizations and not have the individuals that come to themselves and say, my heart is no longer in this, I'm leaving this organization, but rather go into the organization and put the heart into it. Or find the heart and insert it there, or find it, recover it there, rather than the people find their own heart and they use it as a reason to step away.
Yeah, because also like what the title of this Playshop is, work hard, play hard, is really like a law saying, right? Yeah, you have to work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
So we transitioned into work hard, play hard. So because people are getting burned out really quickly, right? Like maybe working 100 hours a week is nothing.
Well, it's not nothing, but it's common that it should be. Yeah. So that's one of my big questions. It was also one of the questions of the research, and I think it's one of the big challenges in a lot of work fields. How do we actually in the organization manifest such a change that those people who are coming to this realization that you came to, that I have come to my professional life as well, my whole heart is no longer in my work, are not leaving the actual organizations, but we can reimagine those organizations.
Right.
A place where those people feel like they can bring their heart, they have their heart in their work.
Yes.
I think this is happening. This is unfolding thanks to the time we're in now, where with masses of people working from home, and like I'm way happier now, and companies saying we have to respect that. We can't just force people to be in offices all the time. I think there's an awareness in some companies, and to me, if companies will survive, they have to adopt this attitude because it's sustainable. We have to pay attention to the cares and the issues of people at a whole nother level than we ever used to before. We can't just treat them like cogs. We can try. We can have the attitude of consulting agent firms and the big 5 consulting firms and big law firms of, well, if they burn out, no problem. There's going to be another batch from law school next year. You know, there was that attitude for a long time in big companies, right? Well, really, you think that's really a sustainable strategy to keep burning people out, and then because there's a new batch that are unburned out that are just going to be able to come in and fill in. The culture is diseased if they're continually burning out. So I think that's the aspirational side of this is how can we create cultures, organizational cultures, even big ones, where there is more respect for the individual, respect for the needs, not just the individual, respect for the human needs of the people, not just through having a gym for people to be able to work out, which super popular in big organizations, that we have the best gym, so our people are going to want to stay working 100 hours a week because we got such a good gym and we got great vacation policy. Well, except you treat me like shit all week long, so that doesn't, all the great benefits in the world don't add up to me feeling great about where I work. So I think that's bringing heart in, from the top, invariably needs to happen in the bigger organizations for sure.
And
so go ahead.
Where you've seen that done successfully, so to inspire also the people on this session, where they can probably play a part in their organization as well.
Well, and I'll say, I'm happy to share that, and there's many examples, but I think part of it is that recognizing, again, what's the way to approach this topic? Because if it's just saying I want to be able to bring more love into the law firm, very small percentage of people would probably say yes to that. But I want to create a culture that is more responsive and more collaborative and more supportive of one another. Because if we do that, our clients are going to feel that. Our clients are going to feel like I'm really interested. I, as the lawyer, is really interested in their well-being, not just in the billable hours. So it's adopting an attitude. So, but some examples. One hospital that came to mind because it was such a striking example, and we began working with them many years ago, Heartmath, and they were dealing with almost 30% staff attrition per year, almost 30% of their staff, nurses, people in life-saving positions, dropping out completely. And they brought these ideas of heart-brain connection, positioned as stress tools to lower their stress, but doing it in a unique way. So everybody could relate to, yes, I'm so much more stressed. Now you got my attention. Now, if the method to do that is to use my heart, and there's all this science about how that works, okay, you still got my attention. If there's science to this idea of heart, not just poetry, now you got my attention, right? So I think that this is why the Heartmath approach was successful in places like Unilever and Shell for years and years and years, because the science made it acceptable to the left brain of the engineers that were in charge of those companies, or lawyers, or whoever it may be. And so that even though the heart was being talked about, and words like compassion were being used and care were being used, it didn't seem so weird, because we had the data that your biochemistry changes when you're more caring. Your brain functions at a higher level when your heart is in a smoother rhythm, which happens when you are more grateful. So we had the data to be able to say, this will lower your stress. And oh, by the way, you're going to be a better communicator, a better listener, a better team player in the process. So in this case of this hospital, they took 400 of their staff out of 1,000 and put them through the Heartmath program. So they had the year this happened, they had 28% attrition, 28% of the staff. When they looked at the group that had gone through Heartmath, only 6% left. The rest of the hospital was 28%. And that was 400 people, 40% of the staff. And they looked at the employee satisfaction, which had gone from 73rd percentile to 93rd percentile. And it went on and on and on, all the things that improved in the organization. But one of the most striking was people aren't leaving. People don't want to leave the hospital anymore. And patients felt the difference, and patient satisfaction went way higher. And so the hospital calculated that they had saved over $2 million in 1 year by bringing in a program that cost them $100,000. So they were able to show that it was a friendlier place. Patients were enjoying things more. Employees were enjoying things more. The number of people quitting dropped dramatically and sustained year after year after year after year. So when you walk into that hospital, it's like, wow, it felt different to the community, to the patients that were in the area. And many examples, I mean, of diverse industries and diverse locations. Healthcare is one that's, it's pretty interesting, because it's obvious when the clinician, the nurse or the doctor is caring, what that impact that has on the outcome of their customer, which is a patient, compared to when somebody's not been cared for. It's easy to track. It's easier to track in a hospital in some ways than some other places. Are there any comments coming we need to respond to? So, and you know, other examples, I mean, we had military units where this concept of coherence wasn't so much talking about love, or we just need to be in your heart, but coherence, the idea that it is possible for humans to operate in a far more focused, more balanced, and more effective way than we are normally doing. And the result of that is more focus, more mental focus. So there were about something close to 10,000 US troops before they deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan back in the 2000s. Part of their gear was the Heartmath biofeedback device, and the training of how to get into a coherent state, which resulted in them, actually, the attitude was not they're going to just be calmer soldiers. Like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. You got to be alert, right? But in fact, the idea was we will be more attuned to needs and more on top of things. So you know, right down to kids, you know, been studies. Is there any comments or any things either the two of you would like to say? Are there more examples you'd like to hear, Els, or?
Here am I again with my challenging question. Because of course I really believe this, and I feel that it should be part of the integrated working space in all organizations. Except I see a risk, because I was a lawyer and we're trained to find risks. I mean, not where they're not, but where they are, because that's what you protect against as a lawyer. It's your professional programming to be able to spot risks. And I spot a risk of So I want to keep challenging you at this, because I think people maybe in their mind that are in this field also have the sense of risk in them as well. You started by saying if a corporation has their own gym, that is not actually what makes the work better for people. If the other, how many hours you're working the rest of the week, you're not being compassionate to them, you're not respecting them, you're not seeing them for who they are, their full self.
And that's based on data, by the way. That's based on data. That's not just a Heartmath concept. The number one reason people quit jobs is dissatisfaction with their immediate supervisor. So they're not quitting because the benefits aren't good enough, the gym's not good enough. It's because they don't feel valued as an individual by their immediate supervisor. That's what that's based on.
But is there a risk that you see, or have you seen that really manifest, that this work so I guess put into the same basket as the gym, right? So let me just.
Sure.
I was HR director at my law firm, and we did mindfulness training, which was, I mean, for the relatively conservative law firm culture, we started 10 years ago. It was super progressive. And I really believe in mindfulness, and everyone has their own variation of being more coherent and in balance. And it can be anything, and mindfulness is a way. But there was a tendency to push it into the corner of wellness, and then kind of to say like, okay, we as a firm, we took care of the wellness of our people. So in my daily work as a partner, I don't need to do that anymore, because I've kind of outsourced it to this other domain, which HR is taking care of. So how do you maybe weapon against abuse or misuse? Abuse is too strong a word, but misuse of this kind of things, that the organizational forces, the systemic forces in the organization push this away to the corner of maybe the HR domain or the people soft skills wellness domain?
Right. You can't completely guarantee that's not going to happen. I mean, I guess the way I look at it is a couple. So I've been teaching, as I mentioned, at Stanford for 24 years, and it's faculty and staff is the audience. And so basically, I've been pushed to the side, so to speak. They didn't adopt it formally. The provost of the university didn't say everybody is getting HeartMath. No, but they don't do that with anything except computer systems. Everybody will be on this computer system, but it's not like everybody is ever told they're going to go through the same maybe harassment training everybody has to go through. But they didn't do that. But the way I looked at it was, they want to offer this program. The people that are going to come to that program need this. If the organization doesn't adopt it yet, those people still need this. It is still a value for me, for my time, for the organization of HeartMath, to help those people. And little by little, it's been hundreds of people. Now, over 24 years, there's probably thousands. So a lot of people, and who were impacted in a positive way, because I've met them, many of them later. They come back 5 years later, 10 years later. You look familiar. I took your course 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Awesome. Nice to see you again. You look great. Knowing that anytime you're helping one person, there's a knock-on effect even beyond them, because if they're even 10% less stress, that's 10% less stress for the spouse, for the kids, for the dog. So we made the choice at one point to say, we know there's certain organizations, there is no way, they're just too massive. I mean, even though we cite Unilever and Shell as huge success stories because we trained thousands of people in it, and BP is another one, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the global workforce. But did those individuals benefit enormously? Absolutely they did. Did the corporation as a whole totally change? Not as much as we would have liked. But did we still feel good with ourselves that those individuals and that many of those teams did improve? Yes. So you kind of, would we love is it more fun to work with organizations where you have the chance to see the entire organization change? Yes. So our work in healthcare, which are by and large not systems of 100,000 employees, but systems of 1,000 or 5,000, we've seen many cases where the entire organization did change, where these concepts of stress and compassion and balance and care became part of how they operated as whole cultures. So that's super fulfilling. So that I would always try to do that, but I would also accept the reality that many systems aren't going to accept it as the system. But if there's still pockets of innovation in companies, I would still try, in hopes that you never know.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, those people that I have worked with, or that we have worked with, have benefited. And that's got a huge value.
Yeah.
In
Sure.
spite of what I can't be responsible for. I mean, many times in the early days of Heartmath, people would be so inspired by this work, and they were awakening to just how unfulfilled they were in their jobs. And our champion in the company would say, I'm so excited. I've decided I'm finally going to leave. And we're like, oh, I'm so happy for you, but we're really not happy you're leaving. You were so helpful to us.
We're making a change in that system. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also believe, like in the work that I do in corporates, in the corporate field, about bringing the heart back in business, it comes really from within. It's like most of the times it's one person, or like influencing others, like I just learned this new stuff or methodology of, or whatever, and then it grows through the organization. And that's how we with Heartcore approach it. So also in your question related to the big law firms, I also still believe like leadership, it comes in handy when they're on board. But to be inspired, maybe they will take inspired action when more people of the workforce are going through a program like Heartmath or Embraining, and that they see and feel and experience what the difference is than when they didn't do that, right? So, and I truly believe that that's where change happens, and that we're also in a field right now. If I listen to all the talks in the summit, like before us, Indra Adnan was online, and like what she's saying also, like in the future, we also don't need the leaders. It's like the community that is bringing stuff up, like, and it's a more a collective force of bringing that change. So I totally believe that's also a big part of our future. And then when we hear stuff and we're so connected to it, we'll make sure we dive into it, like embody it, and then starting like inspiring others to join forces.
You mentioned onboarding, and I think, as I mentioned earlier, the Dutch National Police Force, it's part of the it's the Heartmath Coherence training is part of the training of new officers.
Yes.
So it's like part of the initial training as to become part of the force is that. So it's like the culture is saying, we endorse these ideas. And so that's, if you think about how to affect the culture, that's especially when it can get to that level where it's like, this is part of the package of what you're learning when you join this organization. Is these are skills that we find are essential right now. And I think somebody was just saying in the chat, the pace of degradation of organizations, of systems clearly collapsing is going to increase.
Yeah.
But also the positive is going to increase quicker too, because with things that are no longer helping us and serving us falling away, it frees up energy for new to get established even quicker. So I think there'll be some surprising advances in a lot of these areas, even as dire as it looks now in the economy, and how much everyone is struggling, and how difficult some of these changes can feel. This idea of a tipping point, you know, we're at it in all kinds of ways that are invisible to us, I think.
Yeah, I totally that we're currently at this tipping point. That's also why we are here right now, to be part of the tipping point and to inspire others with our stories, with our knowledge, and especially also with the wisdom you brought to the surface, Bruce, to bring into this field of law, and that we maybe can start evolving to work hard, play hard.
And I know we're supposed to close. I think this is
time, because I believe we're at the end of this session.
Yeah. Can I just make one last comment to tie a few things together?
Yes.
And it's partly responding to some of the questions that Els has had. But as a kid growing up in the U.S., in the time of the racial unrest and riots in the cities and marches against the Vietnam War. And it was a very chaotic and scary time. And we were still in tremendous fear that nuclear war could break out. We were not removed from that reality. I mean, the Cuban Missile Crisis was not that many years old. And I remember vividly as a kid that feeling so inspired by lawyers. Many of them were American Civil Liberties Union lawyers, ACLU lawyers, who were taking a stand, putting their lives on the line in the name of humanity. And while I never aspired to be a lawyer, I never thought I would have that kind of intelligence or whatever. I felt, thank God for the lawyers that are on the front line of this. And similarly, in what the U.S. is going through now, with all the shock of how the president is shitting on the rule of law, still there are many lawyers who are the ones that were thank God for that prosecutor, thank God for that lawyer who is standing up for truth. And that's the heart, that's the courage that to me is what we really need. It's much less about, it's not just the softness that we can associate with love or the heart, but about the strength that says, wow, that guy's got so much heart. The brave heart concept of the Scottish hero he was not soft and all about love. He was going into battle for humanity, for justice. I think that's an aspect of this conversation too, that the heart is what can fortify us, because it's so easy to be in fear now. But a strong heart can say, okay, this is hard. Yes, this is hard, but we're going to do this because we need to, because it's right, and this is what the world needs. And people like Nelson Mandela, he was a lot older than me, but we were born on the same day. And I have this unique connection to him because we share a birthday. And when I went to visit the prison off the coast of Cape Town, where he was in prison for 25 years, and walked through the places where he was, and heard the stories about how every year they had the guard assigned to him had to be rotated off, because whoever was assigned to him became so compassionate to him, because he treated them with such love and forgiveness. And so the warden of the prison couldn't trust these guards anymore, because, Nelson's got you wrapped around his finger. But it was genuine. And you heard those stories and you think, what a man of humanity Nelson Mandela was to, it wasn't soft, but there was such deep compassion in him and such deep forgiveness. And to me, it's those qualities of that we talk about from the heart that are especially are what needed now at this time in our life. Whatever happens in the election in the US, we're going to need a lot of frickin' compassion for whatever has happened. And more than that.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
not last word. I'm not going to say last words, but
I hope not.
Way, is there anything you want to say as a takeout?
No, other than very happy to have been here with you all today. And I think that being part of this summit about the future of law, I really feel these days the future is also in our hands. You know, we can help imagine the future. We can help manifest the future, and we should. I think there's a clear call to action to do that. And one of the ways to do that is from our hearts as well as our minds. So let's try and inspire others and do it for ourselves as well, and use both.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And so I would love to wrap up with a beautiful sentence that we, before this session, talked about. And for you as to take away with you and to think about, or maybe to contemplate, what makes your heart sing? And that's something that is coming from Bruce. That's what he does. Like he uses his creativity and singing, and he founded this beautiful sentence. So we would love to share that with you, and just take it with you. And whenever possible, send us a message, answer that about what makes your heart sing. So with that, we're going to end this session. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Bruce, for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us. And we hope you all gained from this Playshop. Work hard, play hard.
Thank you so much, Raf and Els. It was really a treat to be with you and to share the platform, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And we're getting hearts and emojis and thank yous and gratefuls and awesome.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
all.
everybody. Bye.